Hi, welcome to the channel. Thank you for stopping by. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're returning, what's up? Welcome back, soul family. I'm happy that you're here in any event. I'm Teresa. I'm a modern mystic, and I don't believe in coincidences. So the fact that you're here, there's probably a message here for you. So yeah, family. Today I'm going to take a little bit of a detour, or maybe I'm not sure if it's a double back, but I've been a little bit quiet on the pre-recorded messages lately because I've been doing a lot of live streaming. And one of the things that someone said during one of the recent live streams, I can't remember if it was last night or the night before, but it really made me know that I need to kind of take a moment and back up just a little bit, because more than one person was saying that the things that I was saying were, they were trying to listen and they want to learn, but it's a little bit confusing to them. And this morning I woke up with a thought on my mind as to why it's confusing. And I get it. I'm not saying I think that, everybody should automatically understand the things that I'm discussing automatically, because no. But one of the things that makes it confusing is one of the things that I really wanted to kind of drill down on a little bit today. And I think they were confused when I was talking about the fact that one of the reasons it's so hard, or one of the reasons, let me put it differently, one of the reasons that Abrahamic religions have taken such a stronghold on this planet for the past 2,000 years is because we literally have a gene in our DNA, in our genetic makeup. We literally have a gene that gives us the propensity to worship. Now, some people can manage to get past it. I'm not saying everybody on this planet worships religion, but here's the thing: there's more things that we can worship than religion, and we have a propensity to worship. That worship gene, according to the Anunnaki texts, was installed in us at the insistence of the one who is basically being worshipped in all of the honor, in all of the Abrahamic religions: Yahweh, Jehovah, Allah, whose first name was Lord Enlil. When he got here, he insisted, when they said, "Let us make man in our image," that we literally were programmed, like I said, a chip, if you will, that causes us to want to worship something. And whether you believe that easily or not, I get it, but just follow through, especially if you have a tendency to buck at me saying that. I implore you, please just listen to me, just for a moment. You can toss it at the end if you want. I have no control over that, but at least follow where I'm going. Scientists have proven through testing and looking at that everything, that for the most part, most children with what we would consider normal or average, above average, what have you, cognitive brain development, a normally functioning, developing brain, the first 7 years of a child's life, that brain is in what we producing a mostly theta waves. Our brains produce alpha, beta, delta, gamma, and theta waves. And delta takes you off to sleep. Alpha is good for focusing down on stuff and drilling on things. Beta's kind of a relaxed, zoned out. But theta is a pre-hypnotic state that basically is like the input key, if you will, on a computer program. It's how we download our programming information in that pre-hypnotic state. We're kind of recording, if you will, in theta. Back when television still had transistors and all of that, they had a flicker rate on TVs that genuinely, that's one of the reasons they used to call it the boob tube, because you could see it really easily in young children. If you sat a child in front of an older fashioned television, and I don't know if they still do it or not, I don't watch mainstream television, but back in the day, you could plunk a child in front of an old fashioned TV, come back in 10 minutes, and they'd be glassy eyed and slack jawed. looking at it like that pre-hypnotic state. And so much of the programming had subliminal messages and all of those things in it. It's programming. They even call it programming. A television show, we call it a show now. Initially, it was called a program. On radio, it was called a program. And now we have computers and stuff. We think of programming differently, but programming is just a way of downloading or inserting information into a storage capacity, if you will, which we are. We are transmitting and receiving mechanisms. In the first 7 years of our life, when all of our learning modules and social cues and belief systems and all of those things are being hardwired into us by our initial handlers, our brains are especially open to that because we stay in that theta state most of the time. You can induce theta now as an adult, but we're born pretty much in that recording state, and it begins to shut down um, as a regular thing around age 7 or so. So if you think about the fact that we have a worship gene and we're born recording in theta for 7 years, what happens in those first 7 years? You learn how to speak the language. Sometimes some folks that are exposed to 2 or 3 or 4 young children can learn, they've had some learn up to 10, 15 languages at the same time. If their cultural environment exposed them to that many languages, they could learn 3, 4, 5 or more languages simultaneously because their brain is recording in theta and they don't know any better. It's regular to them. So they learn how to sort those languages and don't get them confused. It's much easier for a child to learn language than it is for an adult. Our social cues are laid down. Then, of course, our initial handlers, our parents, typically, most of them are going to take us to some kind of religious facility from a very young age. Some of them, while we're still in diapers, they're going to baptize us or do whatever they're going to do, christen, baptize, what have you. Even if you're in a faith that doesn't baptize children, they typically start taking children to some kind of religious facility at a very early age to begin indoctrinating them in the religion of choice. Then they're taken to the schoolyards by age 5 so they can start getting indoctrinated in the governmental curriculum that the government has decided, which includes whatever version of histories that we're told that we're going to, that's what we're going with, whatever version of politics that we're told we're going to go with, whatever worldview that we're initially going to go with. Now, all of the worldview and stuff can be tweaked later on, but our religious programming, that indoctrination is so thorough that most people will never escape it. They're willing to go to war for it. They're willing to unalive other people or be unalive themselves over it. And their religious indoctrination has told them that that's a good thing for them to be so clinging to that faith that they're willing to die for a belief. And a belief is only a thought that you choose to think. And in the case of religious beliefs, it's a thought that you've chosen to think because it was programmed into you by someone else who got their programming from somebody who just had a belief and got it from someone else who got it from somebody else who just had a belief and got it from somewhere else, because none of the Abrahamic religions can be proven, none of them. And yet when somebody like me, who actually went through all of that indoctrination, found some dissatisfaction with it, was led to go and look further, as because here's the thing, an interesting thing happened a little over 100 years ago. In our curiosity, archaeology became a real thing a couple of 100 years ago, and they have been digging and digging and digging to study ancient lands and ancient anthropological systems and all of that ever since. And in their digging, they've uncovered mountains of ancient texts. We look at the script, at the all of us, and I'm not gonna just say the Bible, because whether it's the Bible, the Quran, the Talmud, the Torah, or any of that, they all take, most people that are indoctrinated in those systems take it so seriously. You can't tell them nothing different than what's in those books. But the funny thing is, in the past 150 years, they've unearthed thousands and thousands and thousands of texts that are way older than those religions. The Abrahamic religions, all of them are no older than 2,500 years old at best. But there's evidence on this planet that we've been here and been around as Homo sapiens sapiens for at least 300,000 of the 445,000 years that we found information that would say that we've been here, at least. So we really have a very narrow spiritual view right now, because the vast majority of the world is only taking the latest story that was handed to us and literally drilled into us on the end of spears and weapons, because it was Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all have a very bloody past about how they were installed on the planet and people accepted them. And there's so much indoctrination in them that it's told us not to look at nothing else. We can only look at that. And it literally puts us in a very limited space now, because we are standing right at the doorway of the age of Aquarius. And even if you read those sacred texts and look at the symbolism in them, in those texts, they point to the age of Aquarius as a time for enlightenment, a time for the return of the Christos in the Christian religion. I'm not sure what it points to, because Judaism and Islam recognize Yeshua as a prophet, but they don't necessarily recognize that he's coming back. But Christianity says that he would actually be coming back, whether it's physically or energetically, to kind of set things straight and to bring in an era of peace and prosperity. Now, peace and prosperity should, you would think, be something that all of the Abrahamic religious followers would be interested in, being as how there hasn't been a moment's peace, not one solid day of peace on this planet since those religions were installed. There's been a war going on somewhere on this planet ever since those religions were installed here. Which further makes me realize the fact that most people have so much difficulty accepting anything different, or hearing about anything different, or being able to wrap their mind around the concept of anything different, is further indication of actual programming and not rational thought. Because who wouldn't want peace and prosperity? Oh, but the pastors, priests, and imams told us that the way to peace and prosperity is to keep doing the same thing that hasn't worked for over 2,000 years. And some kind of way it's supposed to just magically work. Even though most of the scriptures tell us that we ain't going to have no peace or prosperity till we unalive and get up off of this planet. But why would we want to hold to that belief when there's other information out there that says otherwise? The funny thing is, I've always been the kind of person that's been a back of the book kind of girl. When I got a book, I would always take a sneak peek at the last few pages because I want to know how it would end. And I'm no different with the religion that I was indoctrinated in. I'm a back of the book kind of girl. And the back of that book, after all, everybody gets stuck on the revelation and the apocalypse and the four horsemen and the horsemen of the death and the angels and the fighting and the chaining and the abyssing. They don't They never make it to Revelation. Got 22 chapters in it. And somehow everybody forgets 21 and 22. The very last two chapters of the book tell us that at the other side of all of that kick up that they call Armageddon, that there is an Elohim that's going to come down, rain down with a new base camp to reestablish peace and prosperity right here on earth. And he will dwell harmoniously with humankind for a peaceful reign after the one that's been causing so much hell and confusion on this planet for the last thousands of years has been destroyed. Earlier in that same book, not Revelation, but in the Bible book, they tell us that the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one, and we see that. And then in Revelation, it tells you that that wicked one, Satan, the devil, the destroyer, the manslayer, they call him all of that. They call him everything but Yahweh and Enlil, which are his first two names. But they describe him, even, it's interesting that Satan title, his title was Satan of the Eden, according to the Anunnaki text. But again, you got to come out of your programming enough to be able to hear that part. His title, when he first got here, was Satan of the Eden. Eden was his home. His brother Enki had a home in the Apsu, and he was Ea of the Apsu. Satan of the Eden, Lord Enlil, his title was Lord of the Command. His brother Enki, his title was Lord of the Waters. And almost everywhere we see Enlil show up in later pantheons, whether he's Odin, Zeus, Yao, Dionysus, Beelzebub, he's very violent. He's a war Elohim, war god, if you will. And almost everywhere that Lord Enki shows up later on, he is Poseidon, Olokun, Ptah. He was more peaceful. He was, like I said, very many of them, he still shows up as Lord of the Waters, or he'll show up in capacities of astronomy, astrology, agriculture, learning, that kind of stuff, science. That's the way they showed up in the various pantheons. But you have to be able to turn off your worship gene enough. And that's the thing. Lord Enki is the one that inserted the worship gene at Lord Enlil's command. But he felt so bad about that because he knew we weren't supposed to be in servitude like that, in blind servitude. He gave us the ability to turn it off if we become aware of it and can be open-minded enough to turn it off. However, I also, as I was thinking about all this stuff today, and I'm going to go back and refer to my notes because I initially said I was just going to jump on here and let it flow, but I actually wound up taking writing for 4 pages. I didn't even intend to and didn't realize I had written for 4 pages until I finished. So it wasn't completely automatic writing. I was looking at the page, but I didn't really have intention. I just started writing, and 4 pages later, I was like, oh my goodness, because I really just thought I was going to write down a few keywords, and it became something else. So I think it might be important for us to take a look at this, because it occurred to me that with the initial programming, part of the problem with turning off the worship gene is that some of our programming, especially when we look at the society that we live in now, again, and I'm speaking about now as in, let's say the 50s or 60s, 70s, moving forward, because let's face it, anybody that was born in the 20s, 30s, 40s, if they're still with us, they're so set in their programming, they're not likely to be able to accomplish this turning off of the worship gene. And I'm not even trying to, some will, some will. There are some older folks whose minds stay young and flexible the whole time through life, but that's not the majority of them. And truthfully, I understand that many of them were not intended to necessarily awaken and waking up. We're in a time of mass awakening, mass consciousness shifting on the planet, timeline shifting, paradigm shifting. When you start hearing the governments talking about reality shifting and paradigm shifting, you best believe it's actually happening. They ain't playing. So we can act like we don't see it happening. Religion wants you to keep your eye on the bouncing ball so you don't know what's happening, but the powers that were know for sure that it's happening. They were playing with timelines and remote viewings and bilocation and telepathy experiments and mental programming, all that stuff that the good church folk want to say is woo woo and conspiracy. The government them been spending millions and millions of y'all's taxpayers' dollars exploring all of that stuff. They just won't tell you about it. But along with the programming, like I said, we had our initial programming from our parents, then religion, then we start with the secular government through the way of school. But the other way that is super insidious and super powerful is through media. Media has been a programming tool. I want propaganda saying that triggers people, but truthfully, it is. It's very propagandistic. But let's just say programming. It is a programming tool, always has been, always will be, whether it's the political, if opinion columns or whatever. They choose what they're going to put forth in the news. They choose the spin they're going to put in it, in the newspapers, in the radio programs, in the television programs, and now through social media on the internet. It all is very, very agenda based, if you will. And if you're in a standard set of programming, you're taught to trust what the government approves of and to distrust or discount everything they tell you to discount. So, for example, we're getting more back to holistic medicine and natural medicine and all of that stuff now. But for a long time, I know, like through my early childhood and up until a few years ago, and to some degree it's still happening, but there was a serious psychological campaign to discount alternative and natural medicines, any kind of homeopathy, ancient medicine. They call it quackery. The government, especially in the United States, they will still call it quackery, even though all of those medicine systems have been around way longer than what we call modern medicine. Modern medicine only been around for a couple hundred years and really ramped up at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. They didn't put their trust in what they learn about the body. They put their trust in the chemicals they could make. 150 years ago, there was only, a handful, maybe 20, 30 different chemicals that were used in medicine compounding. Now there's hundreds of them. We have hundreds of thousands of chemicals, man-made chemicals that have been introduced into our society, into our homes, into our air, into our water systems, into our bodies by way of food and medications. And they don't have a clue how that's going to impact us 200 years from now. Everybody making money. But anyway, what I was noticing with as far as turning off the worship, one of the things that makes it harder is because in the commercial greed of the systems, they've laid down a base programming along with religious indoctrination. We also have an indoctrination of a sense of a lack of worthiness. We have a lot of worthiness issue programming around, as well as a lot of things that trigger addictive personalities. Whether it's food, let me see. Let me look at these notes. I talked about the programming handlers responding and guiding based on their programmings. The archons have been at this for a long time. They fully understood the effect that media would have on mass consciousness. Media has simultaneously pitted worthiness and the underlying sub program of unworthiness, inadequacy, and jealousy against deservingness to create mega moguls in every industry imaginable through the power of suggestion in the media. And literally, all of us have seen it. Basically, they run commercials over and over and over and over again that basically suggest that you ain't shit and your life ain't shit if you don't have this thing that they're trying to tell you you must have. And that's been going on for 100 years in this country. The barons, the ones that are given credit for the Industrial Revolution, they set all of that stuff up. Yeah, America was moved forward as a world power, and people think that it's all beneficial. But if you actually look at the real owners behind what happened and why, it made a handful of people stupid rich. This one over here then did logging or mining or whatever. They got their money together through conglomerates and old daddy money and whatever. And then, I think it was Rockefeller that created the public school system. And again, it seems so nice, free school for everybody. But why were they creating free schools? Because they wanted to create factory workers that could read blueprints and follow instructions. They went against psychological advice and started creating all those ghettos and stuff to allow to pile people into the cities for the purpose of working their factories. And then once you got a paycheck from your factory, then you could turn around and spend that paycheck in their housing and to buy their food and to buy all of the unnecessary crap that they done got and start telling you in the newspapers and the radios that you ain't shit if you don't go buy. You must have this house and you must have this car and you must do this and you must do that. That's why we eat so much meat in this family. After the Depression, it became a status symbol to eat them big honking 16-ounce steaks and all that wound up giving people all these cardiac issues that created the issue. But psychologically, it was put into mass consciousness that that's what they needed to do. The beef farmers pushed that agenda. The dairy farmers turned around and told us milk, it does a body good, even though the calcium in cow's milk actually is not compatible with human bones and causes calcium to leach out of our bones, which is one of the reasons we got nursing homes full of people with brittle bones now, because we were told that we need to drink milk by the gallon, and even had delivery services that would bring it to your house. Made the dairy farmers a whole lot of money. The beef farmers made a whole lot of money. Those kinds of things. And now we have cereal, breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. That's all advertising and marketing, but it shaped our minds to believe those things. There's no scientific evidence whatsoever that shows that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It was the most important meal of the day because Henry Kellogg said that it needed to be because he wanted to sell breakfast cereal. Go look up that history behind Kellogg and them Kellogg's cornflakes. That man was mad as a hatter. Well, one of the brothers was mad as a hatter. The other one was greedy as hell. But we still believe that breakfast is the most important meal of the day due to mass media marketing campaigns that continue to program us. Even though as adults, we're not in theta anymore, but when we see stuff like that suggested, especially if back when they had the transistors on the televisions, even though, and that was the reason for it, they had a flicker rate that would induce theta waves even in adults. It happened more readily in children, but it would also happen in adults. So that even though your natural systems shut down that theta state in a waking state, when you watch television, it would open it back up and put you back in theta. And so they convinced everybody, milk, it does a body good. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Beef, it's what's for dinner. And you must have fluoride in your and there's no evidence whatsoever that fluoride does anything to prevent cavities. But what it does do is calcify your pineal gland to make awakening and ascending that much harder. But we don't know any of those things because we go along with the assumption that our government loves us and would never do anything to harm us. And meanwhile, there's a handful of very stupid rich people that's doing all kinds of stuff to manipulate and really don't care whether we're benefiting or not. And at the helm of all of those, or in bed with all of those, is also the religious folks that keep the party going with that programming. They're all kind of strange bedfellows for real. So with the religion, we have the sense of inadequacy and worthiness. We're told we're inadequate and unworthy, sinful and only deserving of death from the time we're children. That's the whole reason that they had to unalive Yeshua, and we should be ever so glad, and we should celebrate his unaliving every single year, enacting black magic rituals of the curse that was laid on that man's bloodline. They put it right there in the book in Deuteronomy that hanging a man from a tree is a curse on him and his lineage, but yet they tell Christians that they're supposed to celebrate that every year. And Paul, supposed, if Paul actually wrote, was it Ephesians, somewhere in there, he said he mentioned the fact that hanging a man on a tree was a curse, but he's saying it's a good thing that Yeshua was willing to bear that curse for us. He didn't choose that. The Jews hated him and his message when he came through there telling them that they was worshiping the wrong Elohim, that the Elohim that they was worshiping was the devil. Read John 8 if you don't believe me. It's in there. In case you've never heard me talk about it before, and this is the first time you're hearing one of my messages, the Gospel of John, chapter 8. I don't remember the exact verse, and yeah, I'm not gonna look for. Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. I don't have to read. Wait, I can. Since we're here, it is John 39 through 47, basically. He said, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did, but now you seek to unalive me. Sorry, but YouTube. A man who is, you seek to unalive me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from the Elohim. This is not what Abraham did. You are doing the works your father did. They say to him, we were not born of sexual immorality. We have one father, even Elohim. Yeshua said to them, if Elohim were your father, you would love me, for I came from Elohim and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot bear to hear my word. You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. See, whoever is of God hears the words of God. The reason why you do not hear from them is that you are not of God. Now, again, I've talked about this at length in some of my other videos. There were multiple Elohim. Elohim is a plural term. It's been mistranslated in the Bible as God in the singular. It means powerful ones in the plural. A singular powerful one would be an Eloha. So once you actually understand that and go back through and start reading the scriptures, you understand that he was simply saying that the Elohim that you're worshiping is not the same Elohim that I'm looking at. And he was not talking to the Pharisees or the Sadducees or nobody else. He was speaking directly to the Jews who worshiped Yahweh. And once they unalived him, just like he said they would, there would be a great deception come along. Once he was unalived, about 100 years or so after he was unalived, they started on this campaign of tweaking all of these books. The new so-called New Testament books were beginning to be written. And by 300 years after he was unalived, they rolled out with this religion called Christianity. 300 years after he was unalive, everybody that would have known him was gone. Everybody. but they knit him as a mascot in the middle of this book as if there were eyewitness accounts, as if the people that was writing these stories had eyewitness accounts of him. They did not. We have been manipulated, programmed, hoodwinked, bamboozled. And the thing is, well, let me continue on. Let me look at these notes. It talks about, and I mentioned the power of suggestion in the media. There's family hierarchy, competitiveness taught from childhood. It blooms into what we used to call keeping up with the Joneses. Now it's literally keeping up with the Kardashians and the Real House 304s of Where the Will Ever. Think about it. Those the things that people watch on television has got regular people running around here dressing trashy, acting trashy, busting out with what they call main character syndrome, and Karens running all over the place. Where do you think that behavior comes from? It is mass media indoctrination and programming. They started with the uh, paranormal agenda like around 1999, 2000, 2001. Every network had to have that. They chasing slaying vampires and all of that. And then they started on the gender confusion agenda and the narcissist nasty mean girl agenda. All of those things that we are struggling with in society right now, go look it back and see how television evolved over the past 25, 30 years, and you'll see why people act the way they act now. And still, religion is supposed to be the answer for humanity. And it's been all of, like I said, all of the Abrahamic religions have been firmly established for 2,000 years, and we're going from bad to worse. It's not getting any better. That should tell us something. Now, oh, and I had mentioned like the different types of addictive behaviors, whether it's food, sex, money, power, overconsumption, dopamine hits in the form of likes and shares and stuff on social media, on and on and on and on. Now, again, there's no shade in that, because if you live in a Western society, if you're watching this, that means you have access to television and internet. So you're almost, to some degree, you are certainly under some form of programming. You've been programmed, you've been influenced to one degree or another by the influences that I've mentioned. So, how do we fix it? None of these things are easy. It's not like a full stop cold turkey, because, like you said, most people aren't going to unplug from television. I did that, but even still, I watch things on YouTube, so I'm still susceptible to it. Because everything I watch on YouTube ain't going to be a documentary. I might get bored and fall up in the short reels too. That's one of the reasons I was able to see the programming so easily after having pulled away from regular television for 2 decades. When I did start getting more active on YouTube and going into the reels and getting snippets from the various shows and things, kind of showing me little snippets of what I so-called missed. Trust me, I ain't missed enough of it to want to go back and binge watch none of it. I see enough right there that the programming becomes super evident, like super, super evident. Um, but like I said, if we once we're aware of the fact that we have been programmed and there is an agenda, we can take time to reflect with honesty and an open mind. And if we open our hearts and be willing to consider the fact that maybe, just maybe, it's not blasphemous or disrespectful or anything else to look at something else. These ancient systems are not working. We still have poverty. We still have war. We still have racism. We still have trafficking and abuse and all of those things that we have in the name of religion. We in the land of in God we trust, slapped right on our money and everything, and living in one of the most ungodly times that the world has ever known. So maybe just maybe we trusting in the wrong God. Did you ever think about that? Nobody wants to think about that. They clutch their pearls and think that that's wrong. Why? Because grandmama and mama plunked your little booty down in a pew when you was a kid, and you received your programming that made you afraid to question anything else. But I'm telling you, within the past 100 years or so, they done came up with so much information that they done dug up from the past that goes way beyond and way older than that stuff that was invented and handed to us. And truthfully, this this one especially, this is the newest kid on the block, the very newest one. Because even Islam, I think, was established before Christianity really got laid down. And Judaism, of course, was back in Yeshua's day. So it's at least, well, the Jews were around for more than that. Like I said, we went back all the way back to Abraham's time was when the nation of Israel began to be formed. So it was at least 400-500 years older than that. But they're still all forms of Yahweh worship. But this one right here, they wrote all of this stuff and did it all behind closed doors. Up until 500 years ago, it was illegal for anybody that was not church hierarchy to even have this book. So they truthfully led on the end of a spear or a pew and led by intimidation. They said that we was too stupid to even read it and figure it out or interpret it for ourselves. All we could do is come to the church and hear what the priest or the bishop or the pastor had to say. And as I mentioned the other day, now in 2024, in the 21st century, the vast majority of people that put faith in this ain't even taking direction from seminary, formally trained people to understand what's supposed to really be in this book. Most preachers in Christian churches today are lay preachers, just somebody that had a feeling in their heart and understand that being a pastor makes good money, and that's what they wanted to do, and that's what they rolled with. We really, really got to adjust our thinking and stop just following people just because somebody else did it or somebody told us to do that. We're supposed to examine these things for ourselves and see what continues to make sense. And truthfully, if you really read the Bible with understanding and understand that Elohim is plural, and understand that the ones they're talking about in there, that Yahweh's first name, he'd been in a whole bunch of different pantheons with a whole bunch of different names, but his very first name on record, the oldest name that anybody can find for him, when he first came here, according to those ancient texts, when he first came here, his name was Enlil, and he was an Anunnaki being, a warlord that had zero love or compassion for humanity. He has wanted us completely eradicated on more than one occasion. He was mad as hell when he found out that we survived the flood. The only reason we're still here is because of his more compassionate, loving brother, Lord Enki, who is the one who actually is our progenitor, along with Ninmah, Isis, and Ningish Zeta, Thoth. Those three were the Elohim that were the progenitors of the human race. Go read the information, stick around on the channel. We talk about it because I do believe that there is a serious connection between those Elohim and Yeshua. He clearly said that Yahweh was not the Elohim that he was calling the Father. He did not worship the Elohim that the Jews worshiped. He was pointing to a different, more loving, compassionate Elohim. And the more I study this information between going back and forth between the Bible, the Emerald Tablets, the Lost Book of Enki, and back to the Bible, and back to, but more I look at them back and forth, the more I'm convinced every day that Yeshua has a connection to the Anunnaki text and Lord Enki. He quotes them. A lot of the stuff we hear in scripture are direct quotes from the Emerald Tablets and the Lost Book of Enki. Like, seriously. Stick around on the channel. We're going to keep going through it until we get it, because I do know turning off the worship gene isn't easy and it's not a one and done. That's why I've been led to talk about it and try to help people see it and give them something to think about, a little food for thought, because that's what it's going to take for us to be able to awaken and expand our consciousness so that we can ascend and not stay stuck in the trap, the mind trap that humanity has been in for 2,000 years. Let me see. What did it say here? We have to understand why we hold so tightly to beliefs and doctrines that ancient texts, much older than the Bible, the Torah, the Talmud, or the Quran, indicate that are false teachings of an imposter God is the first step. Our predecessors had an excuse for being so deeply indoctrinated because they did not have access to the information that we now have access to, with more and more of the ancient texts being uncovered and translated all the time. There are thousands and thousands of them since the early 1900s. The ultra religious will question all of these documents and they want to ask, where's the proof? Do you have the original translation? I got hit with that the other day, and honestly, I'm so sorry. And I feel bad because I actually used the word stupid the other day. I should have said silly, but it is. That is absolutely silly to hear a Bible thumper that still believes in the shed blood of Jesus and they got to have Jesus in your heart and all that stuff they get in Sunday school, for them to say, where's your proof? They don't have no proof of Christianity. There is none. None. They can't even agree to whether or not Jesus actually was a real human being that walked the earth. They can't. They can't prove it. They tell you you got to go by faith. So why would it be wrong to go by faith in line of other evidence too? Because they've been brainwashed into believing that this is the only word. This is the handwritten, inspired word of God and all that. Have no idea that the way this book was put together was done literally, like I said, 300 years after Yeshua walked the earth. Some of those texts are older and go back older than that. Like the first part that they include the Pentateuch, that is also included in the Talmud or the Torah, whichever. But yeah, when we look at how old this planet is and how many other pantheons go back. But that was always the thing that bothered me as a child. We're told that all of those ancient texts, that even the ones they did find even before 1900, the Greek text, the Roman text, the Egyptian text, and all that, that's mythology. I had somebody throw that at me too. It's mythology, because they've gotten brainwashed to believe that mythology has this ring of it. You might as well say fiction or science fiction. That's how much weight. And I know that when people throw the term mythology around, that's what they believe, just like they brainwashed us to believe minority have something to do with skin color, and it doesn't. Minority simply means less in number than. And if that's the case, the ones that set up the program to say that melanated people are the minority on the planet, they lied, because everybody on the planet is melanated to a lesser or greater degree, but even the ones that have brown, yellow, red, or black skin are all kind of lumped together as minorities. But if you actually look at them individually, regardless what flag they live under, melanated people on this planet are by far a majority over Caucasian people. But because of the power of persuasion, media, and politics, they've convinced people, they've programmed people to believe that minority has something to do with skin color, and got even minorities behave as minorities because of the stigma and the shame associated with the way they changed the meaning of that word. And they've changed the meaning of mythology to have people believe that the myths are all fiction and the Bible is the only truth. When true to be told, the Bible stories were taken from those other texts. If anything is mythology, it would be this, because it's an amalgamation of many ancient texts from many different pantheons and religious traditions mashed up into a new religion. But there was other Christos, there was other folks that was resurrected in the ancient stories. There was other people that was supposedly born of a virgin, other people that went into ministry at 30 and unalived at 33 and resurrected. That Yeshua is not the only one that carries that story. That story was written into the scriptures, and like I said, conveniently they knit the Christos that they unalived. They put him in here as a mascot to be the bridge between the Jews, the Judaic faith, marching folks into the Christian faith. That's all. You got to know what you're reading and looking at. But now, let's see, we're in the information age. That's why, let me see here. Yeah, they have zero proof of the legitimacy of their religious text, other than the fact that their priests, parents, and pastors or imams believe their authenticity and drilled the information into you with firm conviction. A belief is just a thought you choose to keep thinking. It is not an absolute truth. We hesitate to change our beliefs due to the guilt and threat of damnation that is installed with the belief. But we are now in the information age, transitioning into the age of Aquarius. Even the media is starting to mention things like unidentified aerial devices or UFOs, paradigm shifts, alternate realities, entanglement, etc. It is the responsibility of the newer generations to be curious enough, intelligent enough, and brave enough to open their minds to new ideas and information, especially concerning religion, because the histories that they've given us and forced us to learn in schools have shown very clearly that the religious system of the past 2,000 years are clearly not working. They deceive, no, this is that deceiver. They discourage us, from looking further by dismissiveness and calling all other ancient texts mythology, and yet they demand that we accept the Abrahamic texts that promote a very fickle, misogynistic, violent, warmongering, murderous, jealous being who insists that he's the only true God while behaving like anything but the true God as an absolute truth. Absolute truth, except the parts in the Christian text that identify him as Satan the devil, the part where Yeshua tells the Jews that the Elohim they're serving is the devil and a manslayer and a liar and a father of the lie, the part in Revelation where it says that he will be destroyed by Yeshua and Michael and those who ride with them in that final showdown in the Anunnaki Wars, just before the peaceful Elohim, who actually loves us, comes back with the base camp, the New Jerusalem, to establish peaceful governance over New Earth. We're supposed to keep our eyes on the bouncing ball and ignore that part, but I can't ignore that part. I've always been a back of the book girl. Like I said, I couldn't even remember what I wrote this down, but hey, yeah. And when the good one got pushed back, when the good one got pushed to the back in Genesis, and Yahweh runs amok all through the book. By the time Revelation 21 by the time I got to Revelation 21, it's very clear that the bad guy gets put down and the good guy comes back. Religion tries to convince us that Yahweh is the one finishing out the book, but a look at any of the ancient texts older than the Bible will help you see who Yahweh really is, and you'll be more easily able to see that he is the devil and Satan that is taken out in Revelation chapter 20. And that's why basically I was led to read the Lost Book of Enki, to start looking at the Emerald Tablets, to actually go through the rest of Sitchin's work. And we will, if you stick around here on the channel, we're in the compendium of the Emerald Tablets now. I think I'm around tablet 10. I'm be actually recording that a little bit later this evening. And once we actually finish the compendium of the Emerald Tablets, we'll be going into the Earth Chronicles series. The Lost Book of Enki was a translated manuscript that Zechariah Sitchin did. It was in cuneiform. It's an Anunnaki text that he translated, but his life's work was looking into the Anunnaki text and the idea of paleo contact, and he wrote a whole series of books about it. Like I said, he made it his life's work. So we're going to go into it. I don't know. Spirit was leading me to do that because I think we're missing some things. I want to get his take and his insights even further than the Lost Book. So we'll be going into that. I also want to look at several of the apocryphal texts. When this book here, this one has 66 books in it. This is what they finally culled it down to and decided was approved. But initially, the initial Bible had about 130 books under consideration. So they took a lot of those books away. And it came to me in meditation a while back that they can say what they want to about their legitimacy or how inspired of God they are. But I understood completely that a lot of those books were taken out because they told us too much. So they had to be discredited as well. They don't want us looking at that part because it will give us keys to be able to understand this part. And they couldn't have that, so they took them out. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and read the ones they don't want us to read, because that's when we're going to really get our information. We've got to stop hiding behind just what the bosses tell us we can do. We're in the 21st century. We have an obligation to find out the truth and not continue to perpetuate this foolishness, y'all. And that's what we're going to do. So that's where I wanted to go with that. And I am almost done here, but I did want to share with you some few things that I went through, because as I was getting ready to do this, I was sitting down and I called in my spirit team and all the rest of that. And right before I got ready to start recording, I was led to pull a few cards from the Metatron deck that I have here, as well as the Christ Consciousness deck. And then, because I thought I was going to pull one card from each deck, but three cards came out of them. And because I do believe in the power of three and that whole 369, I also chose three cards from the Gift of Rumi decks as well. Now, these we don't have to read. These other ones have some information. And truthfully, when I started looking at the commentary that was done in the guidebook that comes with them, it kind of gave me a little goosebumps too about where my thoughts had been and some of the notes that I had taken and the things that I was thinking about this whole idea of turning off the worship gene, kind of moving forward into the age of Aquarius and exploring new information so that we can get unstuck, so to speak. So I am going to take my time to read those. I know we've been here for a minute, but I highly encourage you, even if you got to go, come back to this and listen to those, because like I said, when I looked at the first set that came out, it was a little goosebumpy. But yeah, with the Rumi deck, what came over here: turn over a new page, let love lead the way for change, listen to advice, guidance is needed to cross the ocean of life, and move forward, experience the grace of who you truly are. Yeah, so definitely I thought that was kind of interesting, especially that about turning over a new page, because that's exactly what I'm talking about here now, being able to turn off the worship gene so that we can move forward with a new thought that can help us expand our consciousness. Now, I think, yeah, I wanted to go here first. The very first card, I'm going to take these a little bit out of the numerical order. The first card that came out of the Christ Consciousness deck was Pilgrimage, Onward Steps. And I'm going to read that commentary. The illustration on this card is based on the Pilgrim Steps at St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall, England. There we go. A medieval path and one climbed by those long ago who sought spiritual nourishment and enlightenment. In days of old, they would have been climbing to visit the church at the top. While there's nothing wrong in doing this, today's pilgrim is often aware that the true connection to Christ is via the heart and no building is required. We still climb, though, ever upward, seeking connection and increased peace, presence, and awareness. Each step, some smooth and easy, and others more slippery to navigate, reminds us that our spiritual path is made up of many events, people, places, thoughts, and energy. Some we relish encountering, and others we would prefer to avoid, but all are necessary to navigate if we want to reach our destination. The journey from birth back up the tree of life toward our eventual return to pure consciousness is varied and takes unexpected turns. But as long as we keep our eye on our goal, we will never stay stuck and lethargic in the same place for very long. We will see there is always a new vista as we move on to higher ground, while bearing witness to each place we stop at on the way to reflect and take in the view. You are encouraged to look back at how far you've already come and how much hard work, dedication, and commitment brought you to the steps in the first place. You signed up for this life and came here to keep learning, growing, and striving to go higher. There is, however, no rush to get to the summit. Rather, it is all about the journey itself, savoring each moment and taking in the day and the night, the cycles of nature, and your growing development. Remembering what you once were and who and what you know now, acknowledging all achievements and not comparing progress to others, but honoring your unique journey. Pulling this card may also indicate that you're thinking of taking a pilgrimage. This may be formal to a known destination or to an informal, unmapped one. Pilgrimage is about going within, testing your own resolve, and exploring different ways of looking at the world. It may arise out of curiosity or necessity. You may feel burned out, needing time away from normal settings to realign and refresh body, mind, and soul. The pull of a simpler life, a more stripped back routine may also be attractive, with less time, distracted by technology and endless things to do. The calling may also be connected to letting go of some material possessions, identities, or an old life. And again, like I was talking about kind of breaking the programming by stepping away from some of those things that do hold us enthralled like that. The dopamine hits of, the doom scrolling and the TV, and not saying you got to get rid of all of it cold turkey, but it do give you something to think about. And maybe for a time, it is warranted to kind of peel back. You never know. Or I can't say you never know, because you do know if it's something that you need to completely fast from for a while, or if it's just something you need to cut back on. But yeah, each one will be different. Often pilgrimage beckons when we are on the apex of a new life. We are tired and wish to rebirth ourselves and find out more about what drives us and what we could be. Taking time today to just stop and pause will serve you well, to notice and appreciate where you're at, knowing that in this moment you're learning something important. You may also like to sketch, draw, or think about where you would like to go, to future far off lands or somewhere near today. A silent retreat, a walk in the valley or woods, anything is possible, as well as an inner pilgrimage via meditation, breath work, or shamanic journeying. Enjoy the next steps and experiences as you learn more about who you really are. Plenty to think about, plenty to think about. And then we had the Magi. And this one I really found interesting that this card came out because, like I said, Christianity and yesterday in the live stream, somebody had brought up, or day before yesterday, someone had brought up the idea that magic was wrong, and tarot is wrong and divination is wrong, even though, even in this very Magi story, these wise men would have been considered magicians, diviners, astrologers. They that's the very thing that they was on. The priest, the Levitical priest, had the and the thummim, which were divination tools. And King Saul, even though he banned divination, When he wanted to talk to Samuel, who had transitioned, he went and sought out the witch of Endor to ask her to summon Samuel's spirit to have a conversation with him. And I already discussed the fact that the whole Easter resurrection, the Last Supper resurrection Easter ritual, that is a curse and an act of high black magic, including the satanic rituals of carnism, the blood, the cannibalism. That is satanic for sure. And even the everyday, our prayers, the way we're taught to pray, praying to Yahweh in Jesus' name, which Jesus means hail Zeus. Zeus was one of Yahweh's names in a previous pantheon. And then capping that prayer off by saying Amen, which is a binding prayer to Marduk, who is Yahweh Enlil's nephew. And ironically, the God that the Israelites was worshiping before they got with Yahweh, they were calling him Moloch, but that goes right back to Marduk. That was one of his iterations, if you will, in one of the pantheons. So the more you know. Anyway, the Magi, or three wise men from the east, as they're also known, were among the first to recognize the energy of the Christed One about to be born. They followed the Star of Bethlehem set against the midnight sky. And we've talked about that before. The fact that that star was low enough in the sky for them to follow directly to the manger in Egypt wasn't a star. That was some sort of flying vessel that they had that led them to that manger. The Anunnaki showed up very often, and they had craft that they flew around planet. There were landing places here. They still, you can see them if you look at some of those ancient places around the planet. They're very clearly landing spaces, but they showed up in flying machines and clouds and all kinds of ways. In the scriptures, they talk about the wheel within the wheel and the eyes and all that. That's a vehicle, people. The Mayans showed them sitting in spaceships with the controls and all the rest of it. So when it showed up appearing as a light body, but it's hovering low enough to lead them to a specific location, that was the Anunnaki leading them to these mystics. The Magi were mystics leading them to the birthplace of Yeshua, because they had been looking for him in a good way. Herod was looking for him to unalive him. They were looking for him because they knew and acknowledged that he was the Christ child. Let me see. They followed the Star of Bethlehem set against the midnight sky, to find and honor the light arriving, trusting that their inner and outer compass was correct, and believing in the heaven sent sign that Yeshua was to incarnate, and their own intuitive feelings. They did not know where, and they did not know who he was yet, but they knew what he signified, the being who would leave a template from which Christ's consciousness would be laid forevermore. They were highly likely to have been masters of astronomy and astrology, and would have been waiting for such a divinely appointed time, knowing before others the significance of the moment. Drawing this card may well signify that you too are receiving signs from Spirit to follow your star, to walk toward your dream, destiny, and mission, indicating it is favorable to move, change, grow, and travel on. But maybe you doubt it or are unsure of the signs, even though divine timing may very well be here. This is a time to start to trust and act on the signs you receive, even if, like the Magi, others cannot see what you see. Learn instead to have faith in your own abilities, intuitive feelings, stirrings of your soul, and sense of premonition. And y'all, this one gave me goosebumps for real. I struggled for a while with whether or not I would say the things that I'm currently saying on my channel now. it was bad enough. Lord, y'all want me to read tarot? Well, okay, I guess a clairaudience that kicked in, and I got tarot guides, and folks is telling me I'm scary accurate. So, okay, I can read tarot. And then, like, Yeshua was like, you gonna read tarot, but you're gonna do a little more than that too. You're gonna deliver these messages. You're gonna channel. What? Oh God, they're gonna think I'm crazy. I've already had a couple of relatives coming at me sideways. I get people in the audience, comments coming at me sideways. I even have people that's so petty, they come at me about my weight, they come at me about all this other stuff. But once you know it, you can't unknow it. And once I understood and received a message from Spirit that I was gonna talk about it, oh, you go talk about it whether you want to or not, boo boo. Because you can't not talk about it. Because even if I only help one other person see it, then what everybody else said is immaterial and it's worth it. The Magi recommended you. The Magi recommend you to be at one with nature, to start to read her cycles and behaviors, to the way night follows day and the cloud formations and skies herald frost or storm, or the peace of mellow days in the heartbeat of Mother Earth. Knowing what is normal will reveal to you what is extraordinary, the unexpected snow, the welcome rain, the way nature gives us signs all the time if we're in tune with her ways and heartbeat. You have within you past lifetimes where you too looked to the sky and were able to tell the time from the sun's dial, the season from what was in bloom, or which birds were migrating. You are encouraged once more to divine into these latent skills the knowingness you carry within your bloodline, which knows when to act and when to stand still. It is also a sign that the Christ consciousness light within you is growing, and as such, you are given a purple robe of spirituality to deepen your learning and encouraging you to be the living embodiment of what you seek. It signifies it is the right time to heal and practice the tenets of what it means to be a Christed human, to demonstrate forgiveness, not to retaliate when another betrays you, to speak with peace, or to love your neighbor as yourself. Yeshua was gifted gold, frankincense, and myrrh to signify greatness in all these qualities to come. So too are you given these etheric gifts of frankincense for prayer and connection, gold for standing in your sovereignty, and myrrh for purification and release. The time is here to claim the life you were born to live and that which is destined in the stars and of which you are part. Follow your path in the light that will guide you to where you are meant to be at the perfect time. All is prepared and ready. Your future awaits. Wow. And then the last of the um, Christ consciousness cards was number 20. Oh, and that pilgrimage card was 22, by the way, if anybody was curious. And this is the Ankh, key to life. The Ankh as a symbol is given to you today, a blessing that has been handed down over thousands of years to those who seek to understand its initiatory power and meaning. Today it falls into your hands, and you're asked to carry its energy with you, reminding you of the sacredness of life in this world and the one to come. Find time to stop and reflect on the gift of your eternal life, appreciating the soul's passage through many lifetimes, dimensions, and portals. When we do so, we can appreciate that what we experience is always an instrument to teach and garner wisdom and learning, the soul never wanting to stop evolving. The Ankh's origins are heavily debated but seen in many ancient civilizations, including Greece, Africa, and Egypt. In ancient Egypt, it is seen in hieroglyphics where it represented life or the breath of life. In this ancient society, an ankh was often depicted in the hands of pharaohs, gods, and goddesses, and in tombs and burial sites to represent eternal life and safe passage onward. We see it held by the sun god Ra as a symbol of creation, and also by the god Osiris and the goddess Isis, their union of male and female represented by the loop and cross, said to bestow fertility upon Egypt, granting the waters, which is also why it is called the Key of the Nile. In early Christianity, it is said to predate the cross and was used by the Egyptian Coptic Church to represent the eternal life through Christ. Now, with our deepening connection to Christ consciousness, it takes on new meaning. reminding us of our soul's immortality and our connection to our own divinity, not just for kings or queens and those in high authority, but for everyone as a reminder of the Creator and the living consciousness of Christ within. The Ankh unlocks your magnificence, your birthright, and your respect for everything that you encounter as you recognize that just as you are God in a body, so is everything else, even if you can't see it. A multitude of different expressions of God have the experience of what it is to be human within a body. This card and this symbol are your key to see each new day as an opportunity to transcend lower limitations, knowing that this time matters, you matter, and God is in control, and that you are part of that God light. You also see life as the precious gift that it is, just one page in a huge book that makes up your journey through many incarnations. You are reminded not to get stuck on one page or a particular period or problem. As with nature, seasons will change. You can let go just as the tree sheds its leaves, but you will always rebirth anew with fresh blossom and new sap. The Ankh also comes to you as a symbol of balance for your masculine and feminine energy and your earthly physical life and your connection to the higher realms. To stretch out your arms to life as the Ankh stretches out, embracing all it can taste, see, and touch, and having deep roots and ground in an open expansiveness to all that there is. The Ankh also it offers protection in keeping you safe, knowing that nothing can damage a knowing that nothing can damage a divine soul. All parts of you are intact and whole, and all held in golden light, and always reflecting the best of who and what you are, which is a shining light here to brighten this world and beyond. And I was on the subject of turning off the worship gene, but honestly, as you strive to turn it off and look towards it, I would encourage you, if you're not ready to turn it off just yet, set for yourself a goal to understand the true nature of who Yahweh is and how he has behaved throughout history, not just in the Jewish pantheon or the Christian religion, but track him down. Track him down to Yaldabaoth. Track him down to Dionysus. Track him down as Odin or Zeus. Look at how he behaves, has always behaved. And if it's still hard for you to turn off the worship gene, I get it. Then turn around and look at his brother, Lord Enki, the other Elohim that was present when they said, "Let us make man in our image," because he's truthfully the one that made us. Lord Enlil had nothing to do with the creation of Homo sapiens sapiens, except to insist that our age be limited, so we only got so old, and to insist that we have a worship gene installed in us so that we would look at them as gods. But learn what you can learn about Lord Enki, Enki, as opposed to Lord Enlil. And you can look up Enki as Poseidon, Ptah in the Egyptian pantheon, um, Olokun in the Yoruba pantheon. Yeah, it'll give you some food for thought. Now let's see what Metatron got to say over here. And excuse me, I do need to cough. Excuse me, grab some water too. And it's interesting, card 20 came out of this deck, and I just realized card 20 came out of this deck too. 22 came out over here, 33 came out in the other one, which is the Christed number. So I find that super interesting as well. Like I say, everything be assigned to me when I sit down like this to read, and I ask for to be able to deliver a message. And when they line up like this, yeah. What you feel as random, chaotic, and disjointed in your world is a result of your scattered thoughts and feelings that you have sent out into the greater universe, either consciously or unconsciously. No one sets out to ask for problems or difficulty, and yet what we think, speak, and project is so powerful right now. You are reminded today of how powerful your words are. The sacred geometric shape of the dodecahedron, perfectly balanced and proportioned, symbolizes the need for reasoned, wise, and well-intentioned words and thoughts that are also focused. You are in a state of regular communication with the universe. It listens and responds to what you emit and sound out constantly. If you have been projecting that life is hard, unfair, and difficult, the universe will give you more of the same. If, on the other hand, you speak of abundance, laughter, and wonder, that too will be made manifest. Think carefully about the programming that is inside you. See what I mean? 60, like 55, 60 cards in this deck. And I was talking about programming, and the first one that came out of it for me talks about our programming. And they say you might feel it's random or chaotic, but it's not. It's so not. Think carefully about the programming that is inside you. Does it serve you well today? Or is it full of past disappointments or hurts, creating an expectation of a repeat performance? Changing scripts within you, starting to become conscious through affirmations and positivity, and surrounding yourself with high vibrations are important to you right now. The universe wants to support you and bring to you what you wish, but it does so based on the quality of your vibration or stance. If you ask for abundance but don't really expect it, the lower vibration will cancel out any attempt at positivity. Archangel Metatron asks you to put behind your old ways, family patterns, and previous thoughts and doubts, and concentrate on what you wish to sound out anew to the wider cosmos. Let your thoughts and words be loving, positive, and thankful, and great gifts and blessings can follow. The universe mirrors what you say to it and expect of it. Everything in the universe was created from light, and therefore this card links into the great light of the Creator. This light that is all around you wishes to be condensed into something positive and affirming now. And when I say Creator, I'm not talking about Yahweh, because that's the story that was told in the Bible. I'm talking about the one who created him too, the creator of all, like the divine, for sure enough, divine. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say, well, that's what they're talking about too. I ain't say I didn't do that, but yeah, the creator said, "Let there be light," and darkness faded. So too, can you use your own light to dissolve what is heavy around you? Pay attention now to your throat chakra, linked to the dodecahedron, and the impeccability of the words that flow from it, and also to whether that which you hear is positive or destructive. Metatron will muffle out what is unimportant and people whose opinions are out of line with your own vibration, and draw to you instead new frequencies of sound, color, and light that can brighten your world, your perspective, and all you see. A bountiful universe has always existed. Talk to it now with a new voice and sounds to create something beautiful that serves you well. And then we move on to card 33, which is Dimensional Gateway. Master number 33 is linked to crystalline light and higher powers. Drawing this card shows that you're standing at an important place in time on your path of destiny, one that has been created by your own past positive actions, behavior, and thoughts. You have done much good already, helped many, and supported those who needed it, and this is acknowledged now. Archangel Metatron offers you a gateway to a new way of being. He is the gatekeeper to many beings of light and ascended masters who appear when called by him. One of the names Metatron is known by is the Grand Orchestrator, and he is able to call on any energy needed by anyone at any time and does so for you now. He has sent one of his angels of light to greet and welcome you, their arms outstretched and hearts open to receive you and guide you in. See the light all See the light all around this special place, blazing gold and containing wisdom, love, and enlightened space. Step into the gateway and feel the warmth from the flaming torches that purify and cleanse you, ready for your next step. Entering this gate enables you to access all the angelic kingdom that Metatron governs. This is his door and his domain, and it feels like home to you now. You are welcome to come and shelter here a while to rest and recharge before journeying on. Through this gateway, you will find the other end of the rainbow, a pearlescent light with colors so bright your body can only bathe in their wonder, and a host of archangels and angels at Metatron's command, each as important as the other. Here exists no hierarchy, just service to the oneness and energy of love that is all there is. Step forward and reclaim your own angelic magnificence, your angel wings bestowed and your body activated by light. Then go, do, be, and serve others. Help, support, and teach those who need this energy right now in your communities, country, and world. Metatron has called you. His angels await. You are one of his earth angels now. Step through the golden gateway of light and into your own mastery. The time is now, and you are invited. When you leave this place, you do so able to carry more light and love than ever before back to your homes, communities, and the world that needs it. The gateway is in front of you. Step through it now. Wow. Love that message. And our final message for this evening is card 41, as above, so below. Excuse me. You are reminded that the rewards of heaven are accessible to you now, here on earth. You do not have to wait for an imaginary place and state of plenty and peace, a heaven that is out of reach and inaccessible. Heaven can be here today, as can all the glories of the beauty of God available in each waking moment. Look at the symmetry of the majestic blossoming tree reflected in the water. It shows that all is the same, both above and below. We realize this when we stop to pause and consider all that we came from, all that we are, and all that we will become. The cycle of life and the sacred vessel, the cycle of life and the sacred wheel show us there is no beginning and no end. Likewise, there is no place outside ourselves. It is all connected, all joined, all one. The soft, luscious colors of the tree and its bountiful riches speak to our hearts of the jewels of heaven, which are free to fall, or free to all, not needing to be earned or worked towards. This represents our natural state of abundance and joy, our eternal birthright always. Overladen with petals, the flowering branches reaching out and extending down to earth offer enough for everyone. It's just waiting to be noticed, appreciated, and absorbed. Heaven is here, it says. Look at this exquisite splendor and see it reflected not just in the waters of the lake, but within yourself. For you hold all this treasure within you: beauty, light, love, grace, and wonder. You are but a reflection of the divine. It can be no other way. You are a mirror image of that from which you came and to where you will return. The principle as above, so below is also important for you now. Be aware of the need to honor both your divine and earthly states, and do not neglect your own physical self at the expense of the spiritual, or vice versa. The body's need, good food, enough rest, time to relax, are just as important. The body's needs are just as important as the desire to expand intuition, learn more, meditate, and so on. It may also be that you need to balance planting your own roots firmly and deeply, nourishing what is below, with allowing what is above to flower and thrive and be sustained. Spiritual growth requires being open, both opening up to higher states and grounding yourself. Otherwise, anything gained is temporary, fleeting, and unbalanced. Pulling this card implies that attention to this is required now. You are also encouraged to take that which is learned and acquired and bring it to the everyday, whether you be a healer, teacher, shop worker, or engineer, to walk your light, plant it, and be the bridge between heaven and earth, for you are truly the embodiment of both. Earth is your home, and heaven is here with us. Look and seek, and you will find it and be it. And I do love the fact that this card was the end, because that idea of as above, so below is a principle that Hermes Trismegistus, who is said to be the thrice born incarnation of Thoth, put forth here on the planet. That's where that came from, that as above, so below, as within, so without. Yeah. And I mean, that is the principles of alchemy as well. But that, dear ones, is your message for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you know someone that could benefit from the message, please don't hesitate to share with them. We don't want to gatekeep this information. We want to help all souls be free because you are loved, and it is time we were liberated from the bondage that we've been under for thousands and thousands of years. Until next time, soul family, I love you so much. Thank you for joining me here today. Peace and blessings to you. Namaste.